Scrum is an Agile Software Development Lifecycle (SDLC) methodology that defines roles and events needed for building products without including the explicit technical processes for achieving these. A subgroup of Agile product management, Scrum's underlying goal is to deliver new software functionality every 2 to 4 weeks. Scrum embraces the values and principles defined in the Agile Manifesto as a guide for making decisions that positively affect the quality and speed of software development. It builds on these by prescribing a team's day-to-day interactions and activities. Even though this methodology was specifically devised for software development projects, Scrum has spread to many other business areas where projects also encounter similar complexity and ambiguity. This includes IT, marketing, and leadership teams basing their Agile management practices on Scrum. Scrum mandates transparency of information and communication. The resulting Agile team can better adapt to change, estimate resources, report progress, and build software. This transparency is focused on current conditions, a complete departure from legacy waterfall methods whose focus has historically been on predicted conditions. A unique aspect of Scrum is its replacement of blame with an ownership mentality, as evidenced by their aptly named retrospective meetings instead of postmortems, the latter's meaning of which, after death, implies focus only on what went wrong. There are 3 predefined roles in the Scrum framework. The product owner usually provides the vision, desired outcome, budget, return on investment, release dates, content, and funding for a given project. They maintain the product's feature list and validate the team's work between delivery cycles. The Scrum Master ensures that the team adheres to the Scrum process, removes any impediments to their progress, both internal and external, and enables close cooperation among all roles. They are also expected to be change agents for the corporation by facilitating any change necessary for better employment and adoption of the Scrum framework. The Scrum team is the product's software development team. They are given full responsibility for organizing in whichever way they determine best meets the product commitments, and are tasked with presenting results to the product owner at the end of each delivery cycle. 3 artifacts, tangible items created from following this process, are generated by a series of predefined events in the Scrum framework. Initially, the product owner is tasked with compiling the entire list of features that should be a part of the final product. This list is known as the product backlog and is usually ordered from highest to lowest feature priority. Once the product backlog is created, the product owner will meet with the Scrum team during the first part of their sprint planning meeting to decide how much of this list can be completed in the next delivery cycle. Each delivery cycle is referred to as a sprint, which is bound by a predefined duration of time for completing work, usually between 2 to 4 weeks. Next, the Scrum team holds the second part of their sprint planning meeting without the product owner. In this meeting, design, architecture, and strategies for achieving the current sprint items are discussed, with the objective of creating a list of smaller, actionable tasks to be completed during the current sprint. This list is known as the sprint backlog, and the first sprint begins after this becomes available. A daily stand-up meeting, or daily Scrum, occurs every day of a sprint. The purpose is for each developer to communicate 3 things to the rest of the team: what they achieved since the last meeting, what they will be working on until the next meeting, and any impediments they are currently facing. Daily Scrums are to be kept as short as possible and never to exceed 15 minutes. When a sprint completes, the Scrum team and product owner hold a meeting called a sprint review to demonstrate the work results of the last sprint. Reviews are critical because these meetings enable the stakeholders or customers to review the work done so far and evaluate whether the development team is on target or not. This is why Scrum achieves higher customer engagement and satisfaction. Also, the work result produced at the end of the sprint is now available to other teams, test, QA, documentation, training, to work with so that they can incrementally produce their artifacts as well. This is how Scrum achieves higher transparency and faster delivery. Finally, organizations implementing DevOps practices take the work result produced at the end of the sprint and use automation to then run that through test, QA, prepare it for release, and potentially push it out to production. Immediately after the sprint review meeting, the Scrum team holds a second meeting called a sprint retrospective to reflect on the activities of the last sprint. This reflection is done both in terms of what worked well and what needs improvement. Note also that this cycle returns to the backlog before starting again. This is how Scrum achieves adaptability to new requirements. There are several tools used by practitioners of the Scrum methodology. User stories and backlog add refined clarity and prioritization to all remaining work. Scrum boards add visibility to assigned tasks, and burn-down charts add visibility to overall development progress. These tools are often physical items like index cards or boards, but many virtual implementations are made by the software industry as well. Examples include Jira Software, Pivotal Tracker, Visual Studio Agile Tools, and Scrum Desk. User stories help developers stay focused on the customer by adding clarity to all remaining work. They are basically use cases that document requirements with specific attention to the end user's point of view. There are many ways of writing these, but the following template developed by Mike Cohn has been adopted by many Scrum practitioners. As a, fill in the end user role, I want, insert the desire, so that, and then you complete it with the rationale. This single sentence, often documented on index card, elegantly clarifies who the end user is, what they want, and why. The backlog adds refined prioritization to the user stories. As mentioned, the product owner is in charge of maintaining the product backlog, a list of not yet implemented product functionality. These entries are ordered by highest to lowest priority, and by granularity of available clarity. The goal is to move the least well-defined and understood items to the bottom 60% of the list, the items that have some level of detail but are still incomplete to the middle 20%, and the most well-defined and understood items which are ready to be divided into workable tasks to the top 20%. As the project moves forward and the clarifying information becomes available for entries in the bottom two-thirds of the list, these items are promoted up the list by the product manager. Maintaining the list in this manner is referred to as refining or grooming the product backlog. This process is often referred to as T-shirt sizing each user story. Is this a small, medium, large, or extra large user story? User stories are selected from the top 20% of the product backlog when deciding on functionality to be implemented by the Scrum team during the next sprint. Their associated index cards are later used to create and assign tasks on a shared task board. Tasks are a set of development activities that must be performed to complete a user story, and a sprint backlog provides the prioritization of these tasks. Both product and sprint backlogs provide similar prioritization functionality. The former prioritizes all user stories per project, the latter prioritizes all tasks per sprint. Scrum, or task boards, add visibility to assigned tasks and measure the progress of the team throughout a sprint. We'll use this simple board as an example. At the beginning of each sprint, all user stories that the team intends to complete are placed on the board in the form of index cards or stick-it notes and then further divided into tasks. In this case, let's say the Scrum team has decided to complete 2 user stories in the first sprint. After adding these to the board, each is divided into the number of tasks the team deems necessary to implement the entire story. The team members who are not currently working on anything will assign themselves a task and move it to the WIP or Work in Progress column as soon as they start working on it. When each completes their task, they move it to the Completed column. The board is updated each day by moving tasks from left to right across the board until all user stories are implemented and the sprint completes. This simple mechanism is a very effective way to measure a team's progress and track sprint tasks to completion. 2 types of burn-down charts are used: sprint burn-down and product burn-down. Sprint burn-down charts show the unfinished tasks that are still in the sprint backlog. Product burn-down charts show the unimplemented features that are still in the product backlog. Note here that these are critical for establishing sprint velocity, and this is why Scrum has a much better track record for being more predictable than Waterfall. Because we evaluate how much work the team can do every 2 to 4 weeks, the team gets better over time at assessing what will be available at the end of the sprint, and when the entire product backlog can be completed. The burn-down chart also makes it very visible, very early, if release dates are realistic or not. This is how Scrum achieves higher predictability. Organizations that have adopted Agile Scrum methodologies have experienced many business benefits. Some of these include increased productivity with an optimized team dynamic and happier employees, higher quality products due to a tighter focus on current rather than forecasted customer needs, faster time to market due to shorter iterative work cycles that revolve around constant communication, and improved customer and stakeholder satisfaction when their needs are quickly met by a team that builds adaptation of requirements into their development iterations. Overall Agile business benefits: 1. Engagement of stakeholders and customers. 2. Transparency. 3. Timely and predictable schedule, cost, and delivery. 4. Built-in adaptability. 5. Business value alignment with focus on the users. And 6. Improved quality.